You already know what inconsistency feels like, not the word, not the concept, the feeling that Sunday night when you told yourself, this time is different. This time you will wake up early, you will do the work, you will not flinch. And for 3 days, maybe 4, you did. You felt it, that quiet power of a person becoming who they said they would be, and then something small happened. A bad night's sleep, a moment of doubt. Someone said something that shouldn't have mattered. And just like that, the version of you that was finally showing up disappeared. No dramatic failure, no breakdown. Just a slow, silent retreat back into the person you were before you decided to change. And the cruelest part, you didn't even notice it happening. 1 skip day became 2. 2 became a week. The week became a quiet agreement with yourself that maybe you're just not someone who follows through. Maybe discipline is for other people built differently, wired differently, born into the right circumstances. But here is what no one tells you about consistency. It is not a personality trait. It is not something you either have or you don't. It is not reserved for people with perfect childhoods or iron willpower or the right morning routine. Consistency is a philosophy. And like all philosophy worth living by, it asks something ruthless of you. The Stoics understood this. Not as a motivational idea, not as a productivity hack, but as a way of seeing, a way of being in the world that makes inconsistency not just difficult, but eventually impossible. What you are about to hear are not 5 tips. They are 5 lessons. And they are called ruthless because they will not comfort you. They will not tell you that you are enough just as you are. They will tell you the truth, and the truth, when you finally stop running from it, is the only thing that has ever actually changed anyone. Are you ready to stop being someone who almost became consistent? There's a story you carry about yourself. You may not call it a story. You probably call it reality. It sounds something like this. I start strong, but I can't finish. I know what I should do, but I don't do it. I have the ideas, but not the follow-through. I'm not a disciplined person. You have repeated this so many times in your own mind, maybe even out loud, that it has stopped feeling like an opinion and started feeling like a fact, like height, like eye color, something fixed, something inherited. But when did you first decide this about yourself? Was it a parent who said you never finish what you start? A teacher who watched you give up on something difficult? A string of failed attempts that your mind quietly cataloged as evidence for the case it was already building against you? The wound of inconsistency is almost never about laziness. That is the surface reading, the easy explanation that lets everyone off the hook. The real wound sits deeper. It is the wound of a person who learned somewhere along the way that effort leads to disappointment, that trying fully means failing fully, that it is safer to half commit, because then when things fall apart, you can always tell yourself you weren't really trying. This is what psychologists call self-handicapping. And it is one of the most sophisticated defense mechanisms the human mind has ever constructed. You sabotage your own consistency, not because you don't care, but because you care so deeply that full commitment feels like too great a risk. What if you give everything and it still isn't enough? That question lives inside every person who has ever struggled to stay consistent. It is quieter than ambition, quieter than desire, but it is more powerful than both because it operates below the level of conscious thought. You think you're struggling with discipline, but what you are actually struggling with is fear dressed in the clothes of laziness. And the Stoics, those ruthless, clear-eyed philosophers who sat with the most uncomfortable truths humans have ever faced, they saw this wound clearly. They did not flinch from it. They did not soften it. They named it for what it was. And in naming it, they gave us the first lesson. The biggest lie about consistency is that it requires motivation. Somewhere, somehow, the modern world built an entire industry around this lie. Books, videos, podcasts, coaches, all of them selling the same fundamental idea, that if you could just feel inspired enough, excited enough, connected enough to your why, the doing would follow naturally. And so millions of people spend their lives waiting for the right feeling, waiting for clarity, waiting for that morning. When they wake up burning with purpose and everything finally clicks into place. Here is what actually happens on that morning. You feel it for about 40 minutes. Then hunger arrives, then a notification, then a memory of something you forgot to do, then the vague anxiety that has followed you for years. And the burning feeling, the one you were counting on, quietly leaves through the back door. Think about the last time you were genuinely consistent at something. Not for a week, for months. Look carefully at that period of your life. Were you consistently motivated during it? Were you waking up every day flooded with enthusiasm and purpose? Almost certainly not. What you had, what every consistently performing person actually has, is not motivation. It is a system that runs whether or not they feel like running it. A structure so embedded in the rhythm of their days that skipping it feels stranger than doing it. The Stoics had a word that gets translated as discipline, but the original meaning is closer to practiced attention. The idea that what you do consistently is not a product of how you feel. It is a product of where you have trained your attention to go. Marcus Aurelius did not wake up every morning as Emperor of Rome feeling inspired to write his private reflections. He woke up as a man who had made a practice of self-examination, and the practice ran because he had built it into the architecture of his life, not the weather of his emotions. The lie of motivation is seductive because it lets you believe that inconsistency is a feeling problem, that the solution is to feel differently, more excited, more connected, more sure. But the moment you accept that consistency has nothing to do with how you feel, something shifts. You stop waiting for the feeling. You stop negotiating with yourself about whether today is a good day to do the work. You stop treating your own commitments as optional depending on your emotional weather, and that shift, quiet, unsexy, deeply uncomfortable, is the beginning of becoming dangerous. Because a person who acts regardless of how they feel cannot be stopped by a bad day, cannot be derailed by doubt, cannot be unmade by a single week of failure, but to get there, you have to descend first. You have to look at why the mind fights so hard to keep the illusion alive. The human brain was not designed for long-term consistency. This is not an excuse. It is a fact. And the Stoics would tell you that facts do not care about your comfort. Your brain was built for survival in an environment where the future was uncertain. Food was scarce and threats were immediate. In that environment, conserving energy was not laziness, it was intelligence. The brain that could rest when resting was possible survived longer than the brain that burned itself out chasing distant goals. That brain is still inside you. It still runs its ancient algorithms. And one of those algorithms, one of the most powerful, is called present bias. The tendency to overvalue what is immediate and undervalue what is distant. The reward of staying in bed is immediate. The reward of 6 months of consistent work is distant, uncertain, and abstract. Your ancient brain does not process these equally. It processes the immediate reward as real and the distant reward as theoretical. And theoretical rewards almost never win against real ones in the moment. This is why willpower fails. Willpower is a conscious, effortful override of an automatic system. And every piece of research on willpower tells us the same thing: it depletes. Use it in the morning and you have less of it by evening. Use it against one temptation and you have less resistance for the next. The person who relies on willpower to stay consistent is building a house on sand. They will win some days. They will lose others. And over time, the losses accumulate into the story. I'm just not a disciplined person. But here is what makes this descent truly dark, and this is the part no one wants to say out loud. The mind doesn't just passively fail at consistency. It actively protects inconsistency. When you begin to change, when you start showing up, when you start keeping promises to yourself, something in the brain registers danger. Not the danger of failure, the danger of identity disruption. Because if you become someone who follows through, then who were you before? If discipline is available to you, why didn't you choose it earlier? If you can change now, what does that say about every year you didn't? The mind protects the old identity not out of malice, but out of the same instinct that makes you flinch before a needle, protection, familiarity, the Known pain is always more comfortable than the unknown. Transformation, Epictetus, a man born into slavery. A man who had every reason to believe that his circumstances defined him, looked at this exact mechanism and said something that should stop you cold. He said that it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. Not your history, not your failures, not the neural pathways worn deep by years of giving up. Your judgment about what those things mean, that is what holds the cage together. And the moment you change the judgment, the cage opens. There is a moment in the Meditations, Marcus Aurelius writing to himself in the dark, not for publication, not for posterity, but because he needed to hear it, where he writes something that sounds almost violent in its simplicity. He writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Read that again slowly. Not as a quote, as a diagnosis. He is not saying that external things don't matter. He is not offering spiritual bypass, the comfortable idea that if you just think positively, reality will rearrange itself for you. He is saying something far harder, far more demanding. He is saying that the only territory you actually own is the 6 inches between your ears. And most people spend their entire lives trying to control everything except that B-roll, aerial view of a city at night, thousands of lights, one window lit. The first ruthless lesson the Stoics teach about consistency is this: identity precedes behavior. You do not become consistent by doing consistent things. You become consistent by deciding with full seriousness, not as a hope, but as a fact, that you are someone who does not negotiate with themselves about the work. This is the Stoic concept of proeresis, the will, the faculty of choice, the one thing that can never be taken from you. Epictetus, who had everything taken from him, held on to this. He built an entire philosophy around it, not around outcomes, not around results, around the choice made fresh each morning about who you are going to be today. The second ruthless lesson lives in Seneca, who wrote with an urgency that feels almost desperate sometimes because Seneca knew. He knew that time was the only resource that could not be recovered. In his letters to Lucilius, he writes about the person who says, "I will begin living properly soon, after this project, after this season, when things calm down." And Seneca watches this person with something that is equal parts compassion and fury, because he recognizes what that person does not, that soon is a fiction, that the life being deferred is the only life available. Roll, hourglass, sand falling, close up, slow motion. Inconsistency is almost always a form of deferral. The person who cannot stay consistent is not lazy, they are waiting. Waiting for better conditions. Waiting for more certainty. Waiting to feel ready, and readiness, real readiness, never arrives. Because readiness is not a feeling that precedes action. Readiness is what action creates. The third ruthless lesson comes from Epictetus directly, and it is perhaps the most uncomfortable of all. He says, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not figure out your passion. Not find your motivation. Not align with your values. Say what you would be. State it, commit to it. Make it real in language before it is real in behavior. And this is where most people stop. Do what you have to do. Not what you feel like doing. Not what is convenient. What you have to do. As someone who has already decided who they are, this is why the Stoics are dangerous teachers. They do not offer you a gentler version of yourself. They offer you the version you said you wanted, and then they hand you the responsibility for becoming it. No excuses. No conditions. No waiting for the universe to cooperate. Just the choice. Made every morning. Renewed every time you want to quit. Now let us look at your life through this lens, not your failures. Your patterns. The phone you reach for before your feet touch the floor. The meal you eat not because you're hungry, but because the anxiety needed somewhere to go. The work you almost started, but didn't because you opened one tab and then another and the morning disappeared. B-roll, phone screen lighting up in a dark room. Notifications cascading. These are not character flaws. They are unexamined defaults. Behaviors that run automatically because no one, including you, ever seriously questioned whether they should. The Stoic reframe is this: you are not fighting your nature when you build consistency. You are discovering it. The part of you that reaches for the phone is not the real you. It is the path of least resistance, the ancient brain doing what ancient brains do. The part of you that sits down to do the hard thing anyway, that is the part the Stoics would recognize. That is proeresis in motion. What changes when you see it this way? Everything. Because now inconsistency is not evidence of who you are. It is evidence of which part of you is currently in charge. And that, unlike character, unlike talent, unlike circumstance, can be changed. Right now, not someday. Now. Think about social media. The average person now spends close to 7 hours per day looking at screens, a significant portion of that on platforms algorithmically designed to trigger the exact reward circuits that make consistency impossible. Not because those platforms are evil, because they are optimized to give your ancient brain exactly what it craves: novelty, validation, the hit of new information every few seconds. You are trying to build a practice of deep, sustained attention, and you are living inside a machine built to destroy deep, sustained attention. The Stoic response to this is not to rage against the machine. It is to see it clearly and then make a deliberate choice about what you allow into your attention. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He had advisors demanding decisions, campaigns requiring attention, a court full of noise and flattery and politics. And every morning before any of that reached him, he wrote, not because he felt like it, because he had decided that clarity of mind was the most important resource he had, and he protected it like a general protects the high ground. What is your high ground? What is the thing that, if protected every morning before the world gets in, would change everything? Because here is the reframe that matters most. You do not need to be consistent about everything. You need to be consistent about one thing. The one practice that, done daily, makes all the other areas of your life more stable, more grounded, more yours. For some people it is movement. For others it is writing. For others it is 30 minutes of silence before the day begins. The content matters less than the commitment. What matters is that you identify the one thing, and then protect it with the seriousness of a Stoic emperor. Here is where most philosophical videos end. With the insight, with the reframe, with the feeling of having understood something important. And then you close the video, go back to your life, and nothing changes, because insight without practice is just entertainment. And the Stoics had no patience for philosophy that stayed in the mind. So here is the practice. One practice, ruthless in its simplicity. Every evening, before you sleep, you will ask yourself one question. Not, did I do everything perfectly? Not, was I productive? Not, did I achieve my goals? The question is, did I do the one thing I said I would do today? Yes or no. No partial credit. No explaining the circumstances. No negotiating with yourself about what counts. If the answer is yes, you do not celebrate. You note it. You carry it quietly into the next day as evidence. Not pride, evidence, the quiet accumulation of proof that you are becoming someone who keeps their word to themselves. If the answer is no, you do not spiral. You do not build a case against yourself. You do not add it to the story. You ask one follow-up question: what, specifically, made today difficult? And you answer it honestly, not to excuse the failure, but to understand the obstacle. Because the Stoics were ruthless about obstacles, not in avoiding them. In using them, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the fifth ruthless lesson, and the one that separates people who read about consistency from people who build it. Every time you fail to be consistent, and you will fail, not once but many times, the failure is not a setback. It is information. It is the specific, detailed map of exactly where your system is weak. And a person who reads that map and adjusts is not someone who failed. They are someone who is doing the actual work of becoming. The practice is not about streaks, not about perfect records. not about never missing a day. It is about the relationship you build with yourself through the act of honest self-examination. Every evening, every day. Not when you feel like it, not when things are going well, every day.